my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to a Talking Town special production. We've got some new contributors. We're here to discuss 19 summer transfers into Portman Road. 19, we were trying to list them before we went live, and you get to a certain point. Maybe you can do this at home right now. Get a bit of pen and paper, or get a Word document, and just try and list them, because you get to a point where you just stop, and you're like, who am I missing? Because you get to like 16, 17. We've all done it, and we're not quite sure. But I'll let you do that very quickly. Then I'll run through the transfers that we've had in, and I can remember Jermaine Defoe being linked at one point, and Ash came up with a name as well in the WhatsApp group that completely threw me. I was like, oh, Sonny Bradley, there you go. So I remember when he was going to be our new captain, leading the line, all but done deal. So there's been so many. It's been a great summer transfer. So we're here to round it up. Got some questions from who's going to be the best signings, underrated signing, to rate the window, and everything in between. I've got some comments coming in. Fantastic to see. But as it is Thursday, we will do a thankful Thursday to all of our lovely Ko-Fi contributors. They are on the screen. They'll be on the screen on the intro. From as far flung as Singapore to New Zealand to good old Blighty. They are all here, and I can't thank you all enough for being with us, for sticking with us, and for supporting us. Right, let's do it. Let's get on with today's show. So the summer transfers, if you're doing it at home, hurry up, because here it is. You've got Connor Chaplin, George Edmondson, Raheem Harper, Sean Aluke, or Sonny Aluke. That's a bone of contention at TT Towers. Matt Penny, Tom Carroll, Joe Piggott, Carl Edwards, Lee Evans, Scott Fraser, Hayden Coulson, Christian Walton, Wes Burns, and a partridge in a pear tree. And we go again. Macaulay Bonn, Lad Key, Louis Barry, Burson Selena, Sam Morsey, and Cameron Burgess. Wow. I need a breather after that one. That is some epic transfers in. And welcome Graham. We'll see if he's working.
Hi.
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you. That is the greatest start of all. We've had some technical difficulties with yourself. How are you, Graham? Are you well?
I'm good, yeah. Just about recovered now after all the stuff that I've had going on. So, yeah.
Well, you need an inhaler. Just get through that list when you speak through it. It's like, geez, Louise, it's a long one. But you've got some stories of transfer deadline day, which we'll get through throughout the course of the show. But it's been a really hectic one at Portman Road. You've got a fantastic book, obviously, that by now everyone watching this would have read. But if you haven't, get on it. Have you ever seen a transfer window like this at Portman Road, in terms of a backing of a manager, sheer number? Have you ever seen this sort of thing before?
No, it's been really exciting. I mean, I think you're sort of associate with this. Normally a transfer deadline day, we could pretty much go to bed sort of probably about lunchtime, really, because you know nothing's going to happen, and you just get more and more depressed watching all the other clubs bringing in players and getting rid of players and everything. Whereas this time, obviously, we had that very exciting final signing that sort of, I think we'll probably talk about later on. But I mean, that was 9:30. That was finally sort of given to us. So yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing. But it must be our turn, I think. You know, we've watched everyone else for a long time.
Well, that's true, yeah, and we're going to ask a bit later on about expectations for Paul Cook, which would be an interesting one. Stephen Parry, I do like Morse. He's seen some recent engagement with Borough fans. He's a really nice bloke. Good afternoon, Ipswich Town. Ben Moore's in the room. Welcome in. England are labouring to a 0-0 at the moment, so you're not missing anything there. A Norwich fan asks, do you guys have any doubts about trying to get 19 players to gel? Not trolling, just interested in football. That's a really interesting question, an interesting question that you need to mull it over. So I'm going to play our longest possible intro so you can really think it through. high order of the Mark Tuxford. Here he is. He's got a new hat and he's ready to answer some questions. How are you, Mark?
Hello, Governor. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I've got a smoke machine on order for you, son. Don't worry. We're going to get that smoke machine and we'll get it pumping around the living room. So when you do come out on the show, you can literally emerge like stars in your eyes style order of the Tux. Good question there from a Norwich City fan. Not trolling, as he says. Is it? I'll go back to the question. Do you have any doubts about trying to get 19 new players to gel?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit difficult, but as I've said in previous shows, it just requires a bit of patience at the moment. It's a completely new squad. 19 players is unheard of with a lot of sort of different teams out there. So it's just going to get, especially with the game not happening this weekend, it's getting on the training pitch and making sure that players are in their rightful positions and know what they're doing. And we'll see what happens, really. But we can only sort of gel with the games that are coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if they're going to have a behind closed door friendly, a bit like Arsenal did with Brentford today. Finally beating a Brentford side of Arsenal this year. They'll be happy. Sad that it's only a training game. But in the division, Stanley have made 18 and Morecambe have made 18. So, there's a couple of teams on big double digits. Seems to be a sort of a theme in the lower tiers, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think there's obviously more pressure on us because we've signed good quality and the size of our club. Disrespect to Morecambe and Cheltenham, but at the end of the day, it's this is Ipswich Town, so it's we're a big club with an incredible kind of fan base, really, for where we are in League One, I suppose. But that's the size of our club. We kind of on a history really sort of thing, really, where we're playing from history. A lot of our fans will go back to sort of Sir Bobby times and stuff like that, even George Burley, that type of thing. So it's a tough one, but I think we can get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Mayhew, all credit to the American owners. They put their money where their mouth is. It's all down to Cook now. Lloyd, I think Morsey's going to be the only player I don't mind picking up a card off the card. Going to be a proper bastard in the midfield, hopefully.
Yeah.
We've not had that in a long time, let's be honest. Gary Denny, it's not just the transfers. The vast debt was a milestone around ITFC's neck and meant we could only take in and out of contract players nobody else wanted, but that all has changed. Were you surprised, before we bring in our third and final contributor, that Mark Ashton yesterday spoke about no recruitment team being at the football club? Did anything he said in that regard surprise you?
Not really. I think he just speaks incredibly well. Ever since he's joined the club, and I think he's honest as he can be. I think, and it seems to me that he's the Governor Marcher, where he's trying to get everything in order. From the very kind of ground up, I suppose. I'm just pleased that he's on board, and for me, he's kind of got that recruitment side sorted. Especially with the 19 signings that have come in. So yeah, it's good. He's good to have him here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt.
What he's also said is now he's obviously probably had a stiff brandy and a cigar, I reckon, on Tuesday night after he'd finished all that lot. But what he's said that he's going to be working on amongst the sort of all the other things he's got to do, he's looking at actually setting up a proper scouting network that will actually work for Division 1 whilst we're in Division 1, but then ramp up quite quickly. He said if we go up to Championship, he'll be looking at bringing in like a foreign scouting network as well, so hopefully you could see some similar success to like someone like Brentford, where they brought a lot of cheaper players in from like Denmark and the lowland countries in Europe, and then they either sort of stayed and contributed to the success that they're having, or they sold them on for a hell of a big profit.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I think it's also a bit of a blessing in disguise that the transfer window is actually closed now, because we can focus on other areas. Ashton can actually do his job in terms of getting the stadium right, getting the infrastructure right, and everything else. So I think it's good, and Ashton can sort of start doing his actual job now.
Absolutely. Matt Stannard would like to shout out Ben Chaplin and all who donated to bring iFollow to the Uruguay fan. I did see something like that on social media. Well done, Ben, and guys and girls. Stephen Parry, think it'd be better now Evans doesn't have to try to do Moore's job. He's not there yet, because we have the real deal. And Ben Moore, there is recruitment there, but it was down to him and Cook and staff. We will see legends involved. Wilders could help. It's working in Holland and knows the players. Well, Romeo Zondervan obviously was a famous scout for us through the Burley time. So, that'd be nice to get some foreign scouting network back established and get Town doing what the way we used to do. Right, third and final contributor. It's somebody you know very well, Mr. Tux. So I think it's probably best if you introduce the newbie on the block. Over to you. There's no intro yet because he made the 3 caps, but over to you.
Yeah, he's a fantastic man, fellow season ticket holder. I've got a season ticket to him next to him this year, and thoroughly enjoy his company, and a fantastic presenter as well. So yeah.
And who is it?
Well, his name is Ashley Symonds.
It's like, it could be anybody, Ash. It's like,
right.
Who said your name? I know.
I thought you was going to do the name, Martin. I thought you was going to do the name.
Ashley, welcome in. Thank you for being here, joining the Talking Town family. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, can't get the staff, can you? Tux, of all the times we've been on video together, mate, I thought I taught you better than that.
Yeah.
Well, he turns up late.
I know.
He then don't introduce you properly. I mean, whatever £50 note you slipped him earlier, it obviously didn't work because he's got your name right at the crucial juncture.
And he said there that I sit next to him at football. I haven't seen him this season yet, so
no,
I don't know what's going on.
I haven't been yet. To be fair.
Oh,
I was going to say, you haven't been this year, Tuck, so you wouldn't know who's sat anywhere.
Key is, I have got a season ticket this year, so it's currently on loan to a friend at the moment. But
friend.
I have got friends, yeah. But yeah, hopefully we'll be going. My next game will probably be Doncaster. I've got a birthday and a wedding to go to in the meantime. But be back soon.
Can you go to any games this year? Can you go to any games this year, Mark? I mean, honestly, next game will be Doncaster in another season. Ash, obviously the guys and girls at home know you. They don't need to be reminded of your abilities. But what has brought you out of sort of retirement, if you like, to talk about our football club?
I came to a point where I think it wasn't at its natural end, but I think I got to a point where I was getting a bit tired and a bit worked up about it. And I think, you may come to that stage at some point where you think, oh, do you know what? I need that little bit of extra to get me through this. We were losing every week. And I think my last game was, we lost 1-0. It might have been Coventry at home, the last game before coronavirus. And I was done then. I was really done. And we'd had 3 or 4 bad results. And I just thought, you know what, I can't keep doing this every week. How many more times can we say the same sentence, over and over again? And no, I think coming on Talking Town, basically everyone is, we're not just talking about the same thing. We're talking about different things, and it's a live environment. And I think it's really good. So it's good to get everyone, on the same page.
We do try to, sort of create some talking points before we go on to the show, but sometimes because it's live, it just goes in its own direction. And the notes, I think Tuesday was a bit like that with some notes, and then it just went out the window completely. I walked away thinking, we and Tux have spoken about 6 or 7 different things, and not one of them had come up in the end. That's the nature of the live game. But it's good to have you with us. Sorry. I think the first question I'm going to ask the 3 of you is we've had a big window, lots of players as we've mentioned, but is there a player probably sat in the IP area this evening that regrets or is facing a big uphill battle in something that they thought they would be central to? There's been so many players that not all can play, obviously. So, Ash, is there somebody regretting it?
Yeah, I've got 3. I don't really want to go for the obvious one, so I'll leave that for later on in the conversation. But maybe one of Chaplin or Fraser for me. Could have an uphill battle.
Okay.
That number 10 spot is probably up for grabs by maybe a striker, potentially, or someone else who can fit into that role, whilst we've got 2 wingers either side. Bringing Morsey in, it's going to bring a more defensive style to our team, so that number 10 role could be converted into a striker at any point. I think the likes of Fraser has got to operate in the middle. So when Chaplin's fit, are you going to play him on the left-hand side ahead of Edwards, the likes of Selena, the likes of, Burns, for me, as a starter? He's got to start. I think he's played really, really well. And we saw that on Saturday, played out of his skin. And I think that's how good he plays when he's not injured. And Lee Anderson has put there, Barry as well. He's not even had a look in since he's been here. And, from what I've heard, his agent is not too happy that he hasn't had much football. so far. So, there could be some problems.
From what I hear, nor his dad. No, you make an interesting point there, because obviously through a little bit of the pre-season, Graham, he played, Bon and then Pigott in behind another striker altogether. So that there is that. He was obviously at some point keeping that in the back of his mind, or looking at that. Is that on the right lines there, do you feel, or do you think it's definitely going to be Fraser or Chaplin?
I personally think you've got a nailed on number 10 that isn't quite fit yet, but will be fit in, from what I've heard, in about 3 to 4 weeks, and that's Selena. I mean, Selena can play anywhere across the front three positions, sort of left, right, or down the middle. I think it would be absolutely awesome behind Bon, possibly even Pigott, because I think Pigott, I got really frustrated with and felt really sorry for the guy, because a lot of the time, the match time that he's played, he's ended up like drifting so much towards the halfway line, looking for the ball and everything. If you give Pigott the ball where he can hurt, just outside the area, inside the area, and give him the service, and I think, if you have Selena just behind Pigott, possibly able to sort of, if we change formation slightly, play off Pigott or Bon, I mean, I think Bon's probably got to be the man at the moment that when he's fit that he'll play. So, because you've got Edwards on one side and, as Ash said, Burns on the other, who's been, I mean, he was an absolute breath of fresh air on Saturday, wasn't he, the way he played. And, I mean, that was funny. I'm sort of in a lot of, I don't claim any success for any of these players that have come in, but I am in sort of regular conversation with Mark Steed and Brett Johnson, and I actually gave them a shopping list at the end of the end of last season, and Walton was my first choice goalkeeper. So I'll maybe claim, because obviously you've got the background with him and Cook. I think he's played twice in spells for Cook, and he's like and I think also, if we do happen to go up this year, I think Walton, isn't he at the end of his contract next?
He is, yeah.
So I think a lot of the loan players we've brought in are potentially there to pick up next year, if we have a successful year this year, whereas like a lot of our loans in the past have been almost like sort of square pegs trying to fill round holes or whatever. So and the other player that I sort of mentioned to the guys out in America was Burns, because I think he got that really good goal, didn't he, down at Portman Road for Fleetwood at the end of the season,
where he completely rinsed Mark McGuinness.
Yeah.
I think McGuinness is still running.
And I remember one of the games, I can't remember which one, up at Fleetwood as well, he absolutely ripped our defence to pieces as well. So, to get those two players in, albeit Walton right late in the day, impressed. I
gave him a list, and it had Bart on the top of it, and at the end of it, and in the middle of it, and he's not arrived. So they didn't obviously listen to my list.
He lives over the road from me, mate, so I can have a word with him if you want.
We could possibly bundle him. Yeah. Great goalkeeper, one of the best. But Tux, anybody facing an uphill battle, regretting, as if there's ever such a thing, coming to Portman Road?
I'd like to think that nobody's really kind of regretting it, because they all kind of knew that, it was going to be a big, overhaul of players in a new squad. But I think if anyone's going to have an uphill battle, it's got to be a Luco, isn't it? He's come in,
it's like he's running uphill.
Well, yeah, he just doesn't look at it whatsoever. And, I watched him in the cup game earlier on in the season, but I didn't think much of him. But I think he's got a bit of an uphill struggle in terms of getting in and making a first team place his own. Whether he's regretting that, I don't think he is, because I think he knows he's kind of coming towards the end of his career essentially. So, getting a move to a club like Ipswich is probably quite good for him. But yeah, I think Luco personally.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's probably, as I said before on here, that probably would have been a marquee signing under previous regimes.
Yeah.
Trotted out as the player with championship experience that was going to save us. Do you not think, Graham?
I'd go for Hladky. Is that how you say it? The keeper?
Yeah.
I think he's got to sort of be wondering what. I mean, I'm hoping that Walton in with Hladky, they can sort of play off each other in training and inspire each other. Because I mean, not being horrible, but you could liken the goalkeeper situation before Walton came in to like the current government in this country. Basically, you've got Boris and his clowns in charge.
Where's my button?
Yeah,
it's early tonight. This button, isn't it? Jeez.
But the government is only as strong as its opposition. So you could take that with Hladky having the gloves at the moment, but you got Holy on the bench. Holy got given a chance like pre-season at Colchester, and my God, he did really well with the first header when he came out and won it, but then he tried to do Maradona and lost the ball completely. So there wasn't really, in my view, a real challenge for Hladky, whatever he was doing. So Walton coming in, I'm hoping not only will Walton maybe steady the ship initially, because again, you've got to feel for Hladky, because you might question maybe the defenders in front. We've been waiting for Edmondson to come in, and hopefully really be solid with Burgess down the middle. There was no real spine in the middle. I'm not going to mention players or pick on players that are still here that were there last year. I don't think that's fair to, but you could still question who you'd got in that defensive line in front of Hladky. So maybe it's not all his fault. But when you look at, for instance, that goal, we know what Scott Twine can do. When you saw that 40-yarder he scored for Swindon, he was one of the players I was hoping we might have gone for in the summer. But, everyone's sitting around where I was in not the Britannia, what is it now? It's called the West Stand now.
The Magnus Group Stand.
Yeah, you're sitting there and everyone's saying where that ball was going to go. He'd left such a bloody great gap. And
he's got a hand to it. So Gary Neville would be screaming, "Get hand, you save it." That's the Gary Neville rule of thumb there, though, Ash. You're shaking your head, but he's got a hand to it.
You've got to feel for Hladky though, because at the end of the day, mistakes or not mistakes, whether he's getting as much support from players in front of him at certain stages, but the goalkeeper's a very lonely position, and it's all too easy to be critical of him. But if you make a mistake in defence or you make a mistake in midfield, quite often you've got another guy covering you there or thereabouts. You make that mistake on the line, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be in the back of the net, and you're going to be the one that gets picked on or noticed for doing it. So I do feel sorry for him, but I think with Walton coming in, I'm hoping it inspires him, as opposed to him just disappearing off the scene as well. But time will tell.
Depends on what he was told, though, doesn't it? Because obviously, Holy and Cornell were both told they can go, Tux. So he may have come in with the understanding he was probably going to be a second choice, thrusted into the starting lineup because for whatever reason, deal couldn't be done for whoever, maybe even Walton, maybe Brighton, wanting a fee or not a loan or whatever. And he's not taken the chance, whether it's his fault or not. You cannot say categorically, like Burns, I suppose. Saturday played really well, so it's harsh to drop him. You wouldn't say that about Hladky, which is, I suppose, the point, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised if he starts the next game, purely from a consistent point of view, because you want to maybe keep the same sort of players in to build that kind of team, maybe. But with Walton breathing down his neck, obviously he's going to be, that might, as Graham's saying, that might put a rocket up his arse type thing. But at the same time, Walton is a very good goalkeeper. He obviously hasn't come in to sit on the bench, so it depends what Cook has said to him. He might have said, "Well, you're coming in. You're my number one until the end of the season, until you make some sort of a mistake or you drop form or whatever else." But we'll have to see. But I wouldn't be too surprised if he is starting, if Hladky's starting again in our next game.
Okay, big draft, a big transfer class. This one. So this question could be quite easy, or you could be quite difficult for you. But out of 19 signings, who's the one that maybe people aren't talking enough about, who's going to come May when we do our transfer touchwood special? You're saying, this was a guy we signed, no one was talking about, and he's actually really turned up and performs almost miracles for us. Who's underrated signing of the window for you, Tux?
I think everyone's sort of been spoken about in some way, shape or form because they're all new, but I think if in terms of underrated, I'd probably say Coulson potentially. I think he's going to be a decent left back. I think, from what I've seen of Penny, I think he looks good as well. But at the same time, Coulson, I think, is going to be that number one. He's come from Borough. It looks like he can get forward. He can also defend as well. Hopefully he's going to kind of, fill in, the kind of mantle that Cresswell's kind of left, and Mings and players like that. So I think this club is good for breeding good left backs. I think, with the exception of Stephen Ward last year. But
well, he's only 80% fit as well, isn't he? He's down at the moment.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. So I think he's going to be a decent sign. I think he'll be one of our better signings for us. Put it like that.
You can't unsour milk though, Tux, once it's already turned. You know what I mean? With Stephen. Yeah. Ash, Coulson's a great player. Tux is not far wrong with that one. You've seen him play. Tux hasn't, because Tux has been anywhere but Portman Road this year so far. What have you been impressed with Coulson? What have you thought of him so far?
Yeah, so first match I was quite outspoken, and I thought he didn't play that well. I was a bit underwhelmed by Coulson. And then when we played at the weekend, he was a completely different player for me. He ran the show at left back, and I, to be honest, I preferred. I thought Penny was doing all right, and then we brought Coulson in. I thought, we've got an assured left back there. Is Coulson coming in to challenge him, or for me, Coulson is definitely a good player, but at the detriment of one of our own. Now we've brought in a player on a 3-year deal. We've now got a loanee coming in for the year, and Penny's going to be sitting there on the bench, potentially for the rest of the season, not getting the games that he actually came to the club for. But yeah, undoubtedly Coulson, good player, and I think he'll only get better. And like Graham said, they're only 80% fit. He'd be frightening at 100%, definitely.
I've got to say, I think these players can't be too surprised. I mean, they're all new players that are coming in. They're going to have competition for places. I think, in my eyes, you should have 2 players for every position, at least. So I don't think they can be too surprised if they find themselves starting one week and then they're completely out of the team the next, because this is a new team and you've got to breed everyone in. So I agree. I sort of feel a bit sorry for Penny, because he's obviously scored and played well from what I hear. So for Coulson to then come in and obviously do fairly well, he's not going to like that. But it's competition for places, and that's what we need.
Absolutely. Ash, underrated signing for yourself?
I don't know if you class him as underrated. I think Fraser, for me, is going to be the one that we're going to be talking about come what may. Okay. Apart from the likes of Bon. Fraser, for me, in that number 10 role, either side, he can always give something. I think you've seen that he's got an assist here, he's got a goal there, and we're only in the first few games. That shows a real, character to come into an unknown squad. Like we said, we talked about, the team gelling is going to take a couple of months, but I think he'll definitely be a standout player in the next few games. He's looked like a passenger in a couple of the games, but I think he'll come good. Bon is obviously another one that I think is going to get he will be on a permanent at the end of the season, no doubt about it.
Do you think
he plays well? Yeah. For me, the deal it's surprising it took so long for the deal to come through, because there was whispers of him in April, May time. So I don't, obviously we wouldn't have signed anyone in April, May, but what I'm saying is it was early doors, so it took quite a while to come through. But I think, definitely he's gonna set up shop at Ipswich, and hopefully he'll be one of those characters that will take along with us in our climb up the tables. But hopefully the climb up the tables, but
not hopefully, definitely touch wood. Quickly. But out of 19 players, the odds are 1 or 2 will be flops. Are you concerned about Scott Fraser? Because obviously we've seen him early doors, and he hasn't been in as much as we all hoped. Does it concern you that he might be one of those? Because the odds are there will be 1 or 2.
No, I'm not concerned about Fraser as a flop. I'll tell you who I am concerned about.
Go.
It's Lee Evans for me. Absolutely.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
The guy lacks leadership, the quality in midfield, and his stats really just talk for him. I think someone pointed out in his position, he's made the least challenges and the least efforts in 90 minutes out of every player in the entire division. And that speaks volumes. And, now Morsey's come in, we might see, someone's going to light a match and there's going to be flames coming out of his arse in the next couple of weeks because Morsey's going to be pushing him for that spot. And I know some people have mentioned Harper, might be in danger, but he's nowhere near Lee Evans levels at the moment. I think he will be a flop. And, unbeknown to probably many, he may have been a captain in his time at Wigan, but he was on the bench quite a lot when he was at Wigan as well. And surprisingly, they had a lot of youngsters in their first team. So I think that shows what type of player we've got. I want to see more from him. I want to see him actually, show us as a captain. None of this Luke Chambers, bollocks. Put that to bed. Don't want any of that. I just want a captain who plays football and actually, does the talking on the pitch.
Matty Holland's style of leadership is what you're saying there, isn't it? And I wouldn't disagree with you. But Graham, Harper, Evans, Carroll, you've now got Morsey. Are you subscribing here with Ash that it's going to be sort of Evans and Morsey battling it out, or will Cook look to revive the Wigan partnership with Morsey and Cook and Evans? How do you see what Ash has just said there?
I think Evans has sort of not really performed, and as Ash said about the stats, you do have concerns about him. He's probably the player that I've got concerns. I've got concerns maybe about Aluko, but I think we need to be realistic. I think he's the one player on a permanent contract that's been signed on a 1-year contract. He could be quite a solid addition from the bench. I think he looks off it fitness-wise at the moment. Coulson's dad was all over Twitter, I think it was yesterday, sort of saying that give the players another week or two. When you look at the turmoil of moving, they're in a hotel rather than in permanent digs or an apartment or a house or whatever. Once that all settles down, he used a prime example. He said that they're a really close-knit family, and I know he's from up Gateshead, somewhere up that way, fairly close or a lot closer to Middlesbrough, but he said they're a close-knit family, see each other a lot of the time, and he hasn't actually seen Hayden for 5 weeks. So, that's I guess some of that will probably be with the COVID restriction possibly before he left Middlesbrough. But, I think it's just an indication of what these players are all sort of coming in. It's not as if there's a huge amount of, there's no real senior pros left at the club either to help settle them in. They're virtually all newbies, aren't they? So they're all like learning what's the shortcut to the training ground and what's the best thing to do here, where to go for a nice pint after work when you're allowed to, etc. So I think it will take a bit of time, but I mean it's a hard one because I get all the need that for some gelling, etc. But then you play on the flip side and you look at no disrespect to our opponents, but you look at our first 5 league games to have not got any wins at all out of any of them. The Cheltenhams, the Burtons, Morecambe's, etc. You can play it on the flip side. I think you said, Martin, Morecambe had 18 new players in their squad. I think at the time when we played them, they had 13 new players in their squad. So you could, sort of argue. And it's hard because if you look at the 5 league matches, there's been an awful lot of decisions, like Fraser missing that penalty, and there's been last minute goals or whatever. But equally, it could have gone the other way from us, where we could have had 4 wins. We could equally have lost to Morecambe because it was like a last minute equaliser there, whereas Wimbledon got a last minute equaliser on Saturday. But it's so close. You could have easily had 3 or 4 wins, but we haven't had those wins. So whilst, the gelling is understandable, you would also sort of say, well, mate, we definitely need to get a win pretty sharpish, I think. But again, you can't really put Cook under pressure, in my view, at the moment.
Sounds like you are, though, Graham.
No. I feel he needs time. Where I'd look if we go another 2 or 3 games, I wouldn't be looking to get rid of Cook, because we've seen if you get rid of manager after manager, the infrastructure gets screwed as well, doesn't it? Because they want their new coaches, etc. What I would look at, if we haven't won in the next maybe 2-3 games, I would be looking at bringing in an assistant manager. Because you look at Lambert, his most successful days were when Culverhouse was his assistant manager. You look at Cook, he's had Liam Richardson pretty much follow him around everywhere. his assistant manager, whereas Cook at the moment is on his own with some relatively inexperienced first team coaches, Jeffers, Creaney, people like that. So my suggestion would be 3 games on, if we're still not got that win, how about bringing someone like John McGreal in, who's an ex-Ipswich player, he's a mate or he's an acquaintance of Paul Cook, and he's also a defender, or was a defender, and he did well at Colchester United. So, that would be bringing you in a defensive assistant manager come coach.
I don't think McGreal's interested, is he, in becoming an assistant manager or part of a coaching team. He wants to go out and have his own crack at being a manager, and he's obviously done that at Cole U. He had a bit of a torrid time at Swindon, I think he wants his own gig.
Yeah, and you can't blame him. He's a little
maybe
coach,
someone
really.
Though. I would go the assistant manager route to play the devil's advocate on Cook's decisions sometimes, possibly, but I wouldn't look at. I think Cook needs at least this season to, sort of prove what is.
It's a good point that Graham makes there, Ash. Would you be sort of going along with Graham there, or would you be sort of trying to stay out of a coach of how a manager picks his coaching team? Because that's a very murky sort of slide towards other incremental changes that you then start suggesting. But if he says no, what happens then? Where are you in terms of what Graham?
Yeah, I think a manager should definitely be in charge of the backroom staff that he brings in. I think if we look, it can work in bad ways. If we look at, Paul Lambert and his backroom staff, he had Jim Henry, Stuart Taylor. He had, what's his face? He went to MK Dons. Can't remember him now. Norwich player. Matt Gill. And
good old Gilly. Give it to Gilly.
He had some good blokes there, but in the end, they all fell out with each other. And for whatever reason, some good mates. You've been mates for years, but they all fell out with each other. And there was a big split at the training ground between the coaching staff. And, that's what eventually led to, the likes of Matt Gill staying on after Paul Lambert left and Stuart Taylor going, obviously his father died, but, he didn't just walk away from the position because of what was going on. There was a lot of stuff going on at the club at the time. Now, these were all friends. So, like you say, he's bought some you could questionable acquisitions, you could say, the likes of Gary Roberts, familiarising himself with Ipswich, a player that's been his captain for a number of years. Franny Jeffers, another ex-Ipswich player, out by Eloni, but another good friend. And, I think we got Creaney as well, didn't we?
Yes.
Creaney come in as well. All these guys have got vast experience. For me, I don't really think we should bring anyone else in. I think, maybe our wage bill is a bit high at the moment in the backroom staff area. But to be fair, I think we've got everyone we need. I think we just need to, like Graham said there, get a result. We get one result and you watch them just pile in. They'll just keep coming. And I think that's what we just need to concentrate on. When do we get worried? Yeah, Graham said, let's not change the manager. I think, if there's any time we don't do it, I think it's probably now. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and obviously after Ashton's called for patience only sort of last night, and not in the sort of traditional chairman's vote of confidence way either. It seemed a sincere sort of thing that he said. Jim Henry's Zoom services for fitness is probably peak of the banter time. That will forever be just the peak. Jim Henry's left the club, but he's going to do his fitness sessions on Zoom.
Oh,
hang on.
He was a lovely bloke, though. To be honest, he was a really nice bloke, and it's just a shame that it all tumbled down in the end. But they weren't good as a management team, were they, all together? So,
no.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely, Jimmy Walker as well. He left Sunderland, didn't he? So yeah, you're right. There was a nice little group there. We had a few injuries, and you raised this one, Ash. So I'll start with this one with yourself, really. Injuries to Edmondson and Chaplin. How does that affect the starting lineup for you? And then I'll bring Tux in on that one as well in a second.
Yeah, considerably, because both of them players, I think, are probably bona fide starters. Well, definitely, probably for me, in and around the starting lineup. Edmondson, 100%. And for me, Wolverhampton is the only survivor of our academy that's in and around the squad at the moment.
Enough for you, is he, so far, to really keep the fridge out, do you think?
I think he's just too laid back, Wolverhampton. I think at times he's done really well. I think, Saturday, I think he played a good game. I think, our defensive frailties are because of the likes of Wolverhampton. Maybe we could bring in Edmondson and see how he gets on along Burgess, so then we can have a non-biased person in the back four. I think us as fans, we tend to look around rather than directly at the problem sometimes. And I think, take Wolverhampton out for a while and let's see what happens. And I think, everyone's hoping that Edmondson comes in and has a good game. And to be honest, the clubs he has been at, he helped Derby stay up last season. He's been at Rangers. He's got pedigree, so he's definitely good enough to play in League One. And Chaplin, for me as well, way too good to be in League One. I think the only reason he is in and around League One squad is possibly to do with injury. And, we're seeing that already. Made his cameo appearance, set up a goal, and then haven't seen him since. No. So I'd like to see him come back in. But does he push people for places? I think Edwards as well had a good start. First two games, absolutely sublime. At times on Saturday, he's putting the balls in the box, but no one on the end of it. So, I want to see someone push him for his place. Could that be Selena? I don't know. Is he fit enough? There's so many questions, but I did see a question someone brought up there, and I really want to pick up on it earlier. Someone said, did we bring in Aluko and did we bring in, what's his name? Tom Carroll. Purely to, because we couldn't get the players we wanted, like Selena and Morsey at the time. And I think that's a really good question. Did we panic a buy or bring them in to cover places? Because I don't see either of those players making our starting 11.
So an insurance policy then?
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, Tux.
A pretty shit one, though, to be fair.
I think Aluko is very much an insurance policy. I think, as I said earlier, he'll struggle to get in this starting 11. I like Carroll. I think he's a good player. I think he's another one who's obviously suffered with injuries. There's a reason why these players have kind of dropped down to League One. I know it's quite kind of ambition, some of it, and some of it's Cook, but some of it is that they've had sort of injury problems. They've had their own problems. So, yeah, I think, in answer to your question with Chaplin and Edmondson, I think Edmondson's got to come in for Wolverhampton. I was a bit disappointed with him last year. I think he didn't really kick on. I think he was very inconsistent. I think one of the reasons why he's still in and around the team at the moment, or part of Cook's plans, is that you have to have a development player within your squad.
True.
And Wolverhampton was probably the best of a poor bunch. And that's not to say that, when he signed his long-term deal, he was our best player at the club by a country mile, along with Flynn Downs. But, recently, as Ash said, he's been very laid back. I don't think he doesn't really command a game for me. And I think he needs to do that, especially if he, I think he said before he wants to, be an Ipswich captain. You're too laid back to be an Ipswich captain for me. So I'd think Edmondson would come straight in for him. I could see quite a nice sort of solid partnership between Burgess and Edmondson going forward, with Morsey in front of him, and Chaplin as well. I've always rated him. I thought he's a very good player, and I'm very surprised that we actually got him despite his kind of injury record and stuff like that. But I think he's probably a nailed-on starter for me, with the options we've got. He sort of reminds me a little bit of Selena in a way, but at the same time, both are quality players. And as we said the other night, it's one of these sort of things where we've got strength in depth now. We've never had that for a good while. Yeah. We've had, just absolute horseshit as backup. And that's putting it lightly. So, it's...
no offense to horseshit out there.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's offense to the horseshit. But, it's frustrating when you've seen squads with you've had like Jay Tab and players like that, and you think this is not quality in depth, is it?
Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, the Xabi Alonso of the bloody championship. But yeah, I mean, I think Chaplin and Edmondson would come in. I think they're solid signings, and we'll look forward to seeing them back on the pitch.
Absolutely, yeah. Duncan Coulson has proved himself more than most. I don't think there are any insurance policies, as it were, most more strategic than that. Why pay wages to sit on the bench? Lee Bayes, it's a good position to be in, though. Unlike last season, when you knew who'd be starting now, they'll all have competition. Hopefully, will kick-start our season. Chris Boyd with a pick.
Martin,
Go for it.
Don't you think it's such a refreshing change that come sort of November, December, January time when we pick up a few injuries or someone loses form, you know, we've literally, whoever you bring in to replace, you're not actually weakening the side, or shouldn't be once everyone's fully fit and running. You know, where as Tux said, you know, you look at some of that stuff, the players that came in to replace other players, like last year. I mean, that was one of the reasons the pitch was so green, because there was so much crap spread all over it, wasn't
it? Yeah, and the reason why we couldn't score a goal was because you replaced, you know, Jackson, who's got his detractors, and Norwood with Hawkins and Drinnan, and us three had more chance of scoring goals last year, and we weren't even at Portman Road to be there. Callie, plus we had Humphreys, so if you weren't sure, Morsey would have had him in the squad rather than buy for no reason. Lloyd, I'll bring you in. Welcome in. Thanks for clicking the link. So, Chaplin, Edmondson, do you feel that, you know, once they're fully fit, they go straight into the starting 11, or do you see it a different way?
Edmondson would come in, but I can't see Chaplin coming in yet. Not yet. It'd probably be a few more games just to see how the squad do, and then I think he will come in, because you don't get somebody from Barnsley to come down when they're going for the Premiership just to come down to League One. It just, to most people, that just makes no sense if you're coming here to be a bit part player. But yeah, I reckon he'll come in. But Edmondson, for me, we know he's going to be playing against Bolton. But
we've talked about Cook and patience. Is it vitally important also that now Cook gives some of the players a bit of patience? Because when you've got that vast array of quality and depth, it can be a little bit of a Claudio Ranieri Tinkerman situation where you don't win one week, so you change it, or you're not too bothered about that. Where are you on that one?
Yeah, it's a good point. You know, you can't just rush a player in, because they could, for instance, play very shit, and then that's their morale already down. And you don't want that. You want to ease them in. You don't want to just chuck a player in just because, oh, he hasn't played yet, I'll bang him in, and oh, he's just had a shit game. Well, we won't see him for the next 5 games. So I reckon we'll obviously have some of our best players play nearly every game, but then we'll have some tinkering probably on the flanks just to see against whatever opposition we play. I think we might do that. For instance, if there's a certain player in an opposite team that's a bit slow reacting, we might chuck a player in there that can give them a hard time and force some mistakes. But Absolutely. It's purely situational awareness as well.
Lloyd, before I let you go, question here from Wale Beers. Do you think Burns could drop back in for Kane to allow Edwards and Selena to both start?
Oh, possibly, yeah. I reckon that could happen. Absolutely.
Okay. Lloyd, as always, pleasure talking to you. Take care, my man. Tux, you were nodding there when I read the question from Josh out. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think Burns prefers to play further forward in the position he's playing at the moment. But, you know, if something happens to KVY because he's made of biscuits, you know, it's inevitable.
Cheltenham already, though.
Burns will go back, I think, into the wing back role, because you can't put Donesi in there. You can't. He's not a marauding fullback. He is a centre half in my eyes. I don't think he's even a right back personally. I think he's much more of a centre half. And as I said before in previous shows, I think he is probably our 4th choice centre back now, ahead of Enciala. Enciala can go out the door for all I care, but Etienne is our 4th choice. But yeah, Burns would go back into the fullback position if KVY was injured. I'm
just hearing that. Yeah, I can hear Callie Bislett run into a laptop as we speak. To answer that point, I can hear him coming. Enciala, you agreed with him there, then, Ash?
If I was going to submit a 22-man squad, I'd only submit 21. If it meant including him. Do you know what? I've been very patient, and I think the thing is, I'd love to see the guy do well. Don't get me wrong. Just I'd like to see anyone do well. But for me, mistakes. The mistakes, they're so consistent that I just don't believe he's worth another chance in our squad. No. Not worth another chance at all. I think if you think the red cards, the penalties, the challenges, the free kicks we get given away, that to be honest, he's just had too many, and I don't think any other player would get away with it. So why we talk about bringing him back in again, when to be honest, there's 4 players better than him in that squad. And I'd even put Elkan Baggett in front of him, and he's not even in the men's squad. Give him a chance, for God's sake.
Yeah,
big shout. Duncan says that I think Luke Wolfenden should be played. Still Selena not match fit. Thanassian is best bet over KVY. Ipswich Town, I prefer N Charlotte over Wolfie all day long. He had a question earlier, Tux, where he asked, no point about squad in depth if they ain't performing. I'm a little worried. Goes back to what I asked Lloyd, I suppose, about the patience. What you spoke about management patience, and we'll come to him in a second. But how many games, in your opinion, as a fan, is there between putting a player in and then allowing him to make a mistake or not play well, etc.?
I mean, it depends how heavy the mistake is, I suppose, doesn't it?
Just a 5 out of 10, not a injection of whatever he was looking for at the time, whatever that might be. Just a normal 5, 6 out of 10. No Lee Evans type mistakes, just a bog standard.
Yeah, I think you've got to give someone the benefit of a doubt the first time. It's like anything, really, isn't it? It's any job that you do, you kind of given the benefit of a doubt of a mistake. But if it keeps happening, then it's time to sort of leave or look for pastures new, I suppose. But it's one of these sort of things where this is a new team, and I keep harping back to being patient. We are going to make mistakes. This is not a perfect team by any stretch of the imagination. Cook's got to work out what his best team is. He doesn't know that yet. He's just signed the players. Give him a chance and give these players a chance to put in the hard graft on the training pitch and get to know each other at the end of the day. They don't know who these people are. They don't know who their colleagues are. So you've got to give them time to do that. And yes, okay, there's Morecambe out there that are signing players. There's Cheltenham out there signing players. But the pressure is so much more when you're playing for Ipswich Town, playing at a stadium like Portman Road. This is you're heavily criticised all the time because we've underachieved as a club. We've underachieved since 2002.
Yeah.
That's the hard fact, unfortunately. And our fan base has been patient in waiting for success to come around. We've had little snippets here and there. With sort of playoff defeats to West Ham, but really, other than the 14-15 season, what else have we had? And that I'm one of those fans. I am impatient, but at the same time, you have to realise this is a new era. This is a new team, a new manager, new owners, that we need to be patient in seeing what this club can do.
You talked about patience there. Brings on to the next question. Segue is brilliant. Paul Cook, it was about patience for him, but what's our expectations for him now? So what's the target that you're setting for him to deliver? Ash, I'll ask you to kick things off with that.
Well, of course, it's 100 points, 100 goals. No other, there's no other target this season, boys. Ask every Ipswich fan. 100 points, 100 goals. We scored we scored 8 goals this season, 92 goals to go. Only 97 points to pick up, but still achievable. We've still got. Look, we're going through this character building stage. I saw Mr. Ipswich Town put there no characters in the squad. It's going to take at least 10 games to find out who our squad is, and then after that, we're going to push on. And there's absolutely no doubt about it. If we're mid-table, bottom of the table, I'll be very, very surprised, especially with the squad we've got. And then they would be looking at Paul Cook and saying, like, what is going on here? We've given you, we've invested millions, supporting everyone you want. What is going on? Why is it going wrong? And I just cannot see that happening.
No. Well, you said about 100 points, 100 goals, and obviously, when you say that, there's a certain boat that springs to mind. And the difference is we're kind of playing with a sort of a nuclear warship here, Ash, this time, not a fucking rowing boat, which Marcus would provide. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've actually got some arsenal on the boat that could deliver 100 goals quite easily.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of those promotion sides. Just talking generally, a good side would get 90 plus points in a season if they're going to convincingly get promoted. We don't want to be sitting in the top six. All this talk of top six is we can't have that. Get out our bad displays early, and then from then onwards, we want to see some of that Mick McCarthy form where we go 22 games unbeaten. But turn those shithouse draws into victories. And we're not going to be sitting there looking at 2-2 draws all season. We're going to be looking at entertaining games with lots of goals, and hopefully we can stem that conceding of the goals at one end. Ladke there that we spoke about, he's conceded 10 goals in 5 games. That's not good enough. And how many games do you give someone? We spoke about that. 5 games too much for him. That's the only 5 games he'll play all season, hopefully. And then we should push on from there. And
laying the smack down there, actually, literally warming up as we get going. Looking at that, he's now lay off the smack it down. Tux, what's your target for Cook? 100 points, 100 goals. Says in the zone, Symonds. But what does Tux say?
Well, I honestly don't care how many goals we score, how many goals we concede, whatever else.
You won't be doing the same anyway.
Well, yeah, true. But as long as we get promoted, that's the main thing for me. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, what it isn't. It's getting the promotion, and I'm still confident we can get that. Judging by the squad, as Ash saying there, we've got a good quality now that we can go off and get promotion. At the start of the season, did I think we would win the league? Not really, no. I thought this was going to be a really tough season. And, my sort of prediction was kind of like, second or third potentially. But, it's going to be a long season. And, as Ash was saying there again, it's, I think after 10 games, you do know what your squad is. You know what your first team is. And like I said before, Cook doesn't know his best team yet.
Graham, what's your target then for Cook?
Well, if you look at it, we've got 41 games left to go this season. We've got 3 points from 3 draws so far. So generally, is it 90 points should get you an automatic place? So
yes. Yeah.
If you break it down that way, I say you only, but you do only need to win 29 out of those remaining 41 games. So you could arguably sort of afford to lose 12 games if you had to. You lose the next 12 and win the last 29, and then we're up. So I totally agree with the others. I think we should be going for the top 2, really. And to be honest, once that squad gets going, I think it was Ash said, once you get that first win under your belt, I think there's going to be no stopping us. I mean, yeah, we'll have the odd, probably unlucky result, but I really sort of fancy us to rip up that league once we get that first win. And I think it will come against Bolton when we've had this 2 weeks training together. Hopefully we can sort of get them all knowing each other a little bit more, and Cookie knowing a bit more what his best starting 11 is.
Sounds to me like you three tend to think once we get going, it's going to be a bit like a steam train running downhill with the handbrake off. It's going to.
This is what I want to say. Look, there's one thing I want to say. We haven't played bad. I think people need to, to take a step back and look at how we've played. Some games are blown away, like absolutely blown away by the football we've been playing. Arguably the best football we've seen in many, many years, albeit it's League One. But, just because we've conceded poor goals or we've made a couple of mistakes, our whole performance is jeopardised. We've got to look at the whole face value. We blew them away at the weekend. They didn't have a chance. 2 set pieces. That's the only time they ever had any chance on goal, and both of them went in. That's just poor goalkeeping and poor marking at the back. Going forwards, you'd struggle to find a better team in the Championship, I would argue, at times. We're looking good. We're looking ready. Get a result in the bag, and I think we'll be all right.
Let me give you a little story. Myself, Mark Steed and Brett Johnson have got a little competition going, and we've had, basically it's a prediction competition that you get 5 points if you get the exact result, or you get 2 points if you get the result but the wrong scoreline. And out of the 5 matches, I'm winning with 2 points. I'm the only one that got anything, which was the Milton Keynes Dons game where I said it'd be 1-1 and it was 2-2. So week after week we're expecting the result, and week after week we're let let down. So we've got to start, where we're predicting wins, getting the wins, haven't we?
I think if they're watching this, they need to open that up to all of us fans. I mean, that just sounds like something we all should be a part of. It's our journey together. Don't forget that. I want to.
Have you invited him to the Fantasy Premier League, Martin?
Well, this is it. I probably should have done. I didn't know, but I'm not as well connected as Graham. I'm not. Graham is the guy to go to if you want to have an owner. That's for sure. Matt Stannard. The problem is we've got so many new players. They haven't done their initiation songs yet. Expect an ITFC player album coming out at a coffee club next. Ben Moore. Ash has got more gel in his head. We have in the side. He's definitely trying to rival me for the gel stakes. Normally it's me, Ash, with the most amount of gel, but
look at it. Oh, I need a haircut.
That's hairspray, surely. That's hairspray.
No, there's no hairspray in that. It's just a bit of the old wax kind of stuff. So
fair enough. Oh no, I can't use wax. No, I can't stand that. No. Sorry, Duncan. I think it's all down to the formation. I don't think it's achievable from now. Fantasy football does not produce wins. Right. We've got the last question because of time constraints. So let's go with best signing of the window. Who is going to be the star, or the penultimate question, the star of this transfer window? I'm going to bring in always positive Mr. Stephen Parry onto the show. Welcome in, Stephen. It's been an age since I last saw you and spoke to you. How are you, sir?
I'm mega positive. I really am.
I know you. If they cut you in half, you'd ooze positivity out. You would.
Seriously, this has been one of the best windows I've seen in a long while. It was surprising, the depression that was on Twitter when people were saying that, oh well, Morsey's happy up at Middlesbrough and there's championship clubs interested, and I'm going, look, we've got a lot to offer here. There's a lot of players here he knows. We've beaten championship clubs before, yeah. Doesn't take long to have a few text messages and say, get your ass over here. And as I was saying, there's a lot. We offer a lot, and we do. And bang, it's done. You know what I mean? I was astounded, but I was delighted. And I was dancing around with glee. At the end of this, to me, this is probably, and people might laugh, it's probably one of the best squads I've seen Ipswich Town F.C. since probably 2001.
Do you know what causes me glee, Stephen? When people use the code TT at manscaped.com for 20% off all their grooming needs. That's when I'm doing cartwheels around my living room.
I've got the hair.
Well,
wearing this, I'm bald everywhere.
That's too much information for a family show. No, Stephen, best sign of the window, mate, because you are right. It has been one of the best. I'll ask all of you in turn. So, Steve, kick us off.
Best signing, I was going to say Edwards, but I'm going to have to say Morsey because I think he's the one we need most.
I mean, you can't argue with that, can you, really? Ash, Morsey could be one of the best, but he is one we also desperately need, isn't he? We've watched the last 5 games and we've missed that. Well, no, years even. We've missed that shithouse.
Yeah, we have. And you can't lie. I think if you look back to the last couple of seasons, we've been quite controlling in centre mid. We've just done nothing with the ball. And, the likes of Flynn, Downs, Dazelle, Bishop, they've all moved on, and hopefully they'll get on with their careers. But we do need that one player who's just, a couple of years younger than Cole Scouse and can keep us running, keep the engine going. But, yeah, definitely, completely agree with that. Do you want me to say my player now then, or?
Yes, please, sir. Yeah.
For me, I think a lot of people have said. For me, the most exciting has to be Fraser from MK Dons. I think he's a player that can deliver multiple times and will always be there. But the one that's is going to be a surprise package. I think it's going to be Wes Burns, personally.
Ooh, really? Why? Tell us why. Tell me why.
Because his levels of consistency in a squad that are playing at the top of the table, you'd like to say, in the next coming games.
Well, according to you, they will be. So yeah,
of course. And his levels of consistency is something you won't get in any of our other players. I think that's what I want to. I think Wes Burns could be a real good player, and I think he could get as many as 9 to 10 goals if he's played correctly.
Tux, you agreeing there?
Yeah, I had him as kind of like one of my players that would be the best signing, purely because of what Ash has just said, to be honest with you. I just think he's just a different kind of player that we've had before. I think we've always needed a winger that's got sort of chalk on his boots, but also can provide that kind of that end delivery. Do you know what I mean? That end product. And he seems to be able to do that, but he can also score goals as well. I think he's a very good player. I think it's either really, for me, it's either got to be Burns, or I'll go for what Stephen's saying, Morsey as well. I think I know he's the last signing, so you could probably tell more because he's the one who's come in, and there's obviously a key area there that needs to be filled. So Morsey's come in and going to fill that role, but he is what we need. And like Ash is saying, he's got to be that kind of engine in the midfield, that kind of younger Cole Skuse that's just going to take us forward. So for me, it's sort of Burns and Morsey. But I think the most exciting one as well would probably be maybe it's from what we've seen before, but Selina's obviously very exciting. I like Chaplin as well, so those two are really exciting for me. Yeah,
I can't wait to see Selina in this level. I really can't, because he was good in the Championship. If Ivani's not dropped off any amount, he's going to walk it. But you can only
providing he's fit, though. That's the other thing. I think for me, the only concern I had about him when he signed was that obviously he's had that kind of issue with COVID, and he's had the heart problem as well. Yeah. I think he's going to go away with Kosovo now and play some games, so that will do in the world of good.
Nice.
So is he not playing? Is he? Oh right, okay.
Not even in the squad.
Oh right, okay.
He can't go because it's in Georgia anyway in the red list.
Oh right, yeah, sure.
He couldn't even get there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's beneficial for having some time on the training field then with the rest of the guys.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've had Morsey, we've had Burns. I would have had, the way you two have spoken about Burns, I can't really disagree with what you both said. But from what you've said, I'd have had that as sort of an underrated. No one's sort of expecting it, because if you polled the fan base on what they feel, 10 goals, big shout, but I can't see why you can't. I mean, KVY was billed to have 10 goals in him by Matt Phillips. So if Burns gets 10, I'm sure there's a middle ground there. But imagine the right side of Burns and KVY with like double figure goals to their name. That's where those 100 goals are coming from, Ash. Because at some point, people have got to start scoring those sort of numbers to
if you get 10 on the right wing, 10 off the left wing, 5 from each of the right and left back, a couple in the centre backs, maybe 3 or 4 from the centre mids, 20 from the top 2,
5 from the goalkeeper.
We're laughing, boys.
I'll just take 5 saves at the moment from the goalkeeper, please.
and a couple clean sheets as well.
Absolutely, Graham. You've heard the guys there. Who's your player of this really busy transfer window?
Well, I'm going to be really boring and go with the others. I think Morsey's obviously got to be, but I'm going to go for a combination of Morsey and Walton, because as I see it, we're going to score goals for fun, whatever. But we've got that problem of stopping those silly leaked goals that have been going. So I think Morsey just in front of a back pairing centre halves of Edmondson and Burgess. I think that will really make a sort of central sort of triangle defensively. But I think Walton could have a double value. As I said previously, I think Walton just to stop leaking the goals, but equally I think he could bring Hladky on as well, because ideally we'll maybe sign Walton at the end of the season when he's out of contract with Brighton, but he could also attract higher offers from somewhere else if he has a really good season. So if he can work with Hladky and bring him back, because I mean Hladky, I know he's taken a step up from League 2 to League 1, but he was, after all, the goalkeeper of the year in League 2. So there is a goalkeeper in there definitely, and I think maybe working along with a challenger of Walton, I think it could have a double whammy that you've got 2 strong goalkeepers now rather than Hladky getting bombed out altogether.
Yeah, no, well, I just don't think he's consistent enough at the moment, Hladky, to be a number 1. His consistency is the biggest hurdle for a number 2 goalkeeper, a la Dean Gherkin, to be a number 1 goalkeeper, a la Bart. Bart was so good.
We could go back to Aaron Lee Barrett as number 2, couldn't we?
Don't you go slandering Aaron Lee Barrett's name. All right, I'm not having that on the show. I will ask Steve. My trigger button is ready. I will click you off.
I still think Hladky will be a good goalkeeper. I think he's struggling to adjust. We've all got to remember. I know it's not easy, but he was playing in front of like 2,000 or 3,000 lads. Now he's playing in front of 20,000. That makes a hell of a lot of noise. It's a big thing to start, and you're worrying every 5 seconds, especially when you're not sure your defence is solid enough. And he's not. He's playing behind the defence he's never played before. People are making mistakes in front of him, and he's getting worried. He's getting panicking, he's making mistakes himself. That'll settle down. In time, that'll settle down. He's proved he can do it. I know at League Two, but if everyone turns around and says, well, there's not much of a difference between League One and League Two, then there's a goalie in there for League One. And we know that because he's done it at League Two. If there's a big difference between League One and League Two, there might not be a goalkeeper for League One. We don't know that yet. But people have said that there isn't much difference. I might argue, but people have said that. And so we'll have to go with that and say, well, if he's done well in League Two, he's capable in League One. I just think he needs to settle. And I think Walton's going to settle a bit better because he's played in the big games. He's used to the big games. And last time he was in League One, like I said, he had 19 goals conceded from 31 games. So he's used to playing well in this league as well.
Absolutely. All right, Steve, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you. Look after yourself. To close the show, classic TT question this is. We like to have banter. We are Bantosaurus Rexes. Matt Stannard, hypothetically, of course. We're top of the league, 9 points clear, 2 games to go. Would you stick Ed on for the penultimate game of the season?
I'd like to know whether he's been actually registered as a player. That would be interesting. Over Toto Enciala, actually. Yeah, I'd have him over Toto Enciala. Get him in. Just think it. Oh God, what a magical kind of marketing technique that would be to get Ed Sheeran on the pitch. But no, he's hapless as a footballer, I guess. But that would be good, wouldn't it?
Well, judging by the TikTok video he did with the football, I mean, it was a great big fucking goal, but he nearly missed it anyway. It's like you've been taking some shooting practice from our previous incumbents of the department. But yeah. Well, I didn't say no names. Don't say that's a name on this platform we don't talk about. It takes me to my dark place. Thomas Legg, just get behind the team now. Complete, lads. Season isn't over until May. It really isn't. But we have run out of time. Ben Moore said he could do the job up top, to be fair. So, that says it all, really. But Graham would know, or perhaps he wouldn't know. Has Ed Sheeran been registered as a player?
No idea.
No, well, get on that blower. Get on the blower now, Graham, and we'll find out as the show closes. Ash, thank you for being on for the first time contributor. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've had a very great time. Sorry about who your partner was in the bottom right there, but everyone else was busy. Tux, as always, it's been a pleasure. I asked you this question, but I'll ask the other two because I didn't ask them this. One word to sum up this transfer window as we close. And don't forget, you can support us through Ko-Fi. And if you've not yet done so, because you're a new viewer, because Ash is here, hit subscribe. But one word to describe this transfer window. I'll ask Graham first, and we'll close with newbie. So, Graham, one word, please.
Awesome.
It's a good word, that one. Ash?
Technical.
Technical. I like it. Until next time.